Hello everyone, in this lecture we will learn how to handle an exception. So in the last lecture we have seen this function can raise an exception when this string is not available, and this makes the program to terminate, and you can see this kind of message, right, which is not very user friendly. So let's handle this. To handle exception we need try except. We have to understand try second. Let's try except finally raise. So these are the four things we have to understand. So let's first understand this try. Try means you will wrap the code inside this where you know exception can raise. Except will raise the exception. Finally will always execute whenever there is exception or when there is no exception. In both the cases it will execute. Raise, we can raise our own exception. So here you can see this part of the program, this code can raise exception. So that should be inside try block. So except, you can see here what kind of error it is throwing. It's a value error, right? So here specify value error, then print a message. Cannot find the substring you are searching. Let's run it, and you can see here it will print cannot find the, because this function will raise an exception. It will go in except value error, it will throw an object, it will catch it here and print the message here. So here we can write the code which we want to execute when there is an exception, and inside this try block we have to write the code where we know exception can be raised. There is a chance that exception can be there, and here we handle. Now if there is any exception it will come here, but rest of the program will execute. So here you can see these two statements executed properly. But what if there is no exception? So fine, in that case this except block will never execute. It will work like a normal program. So you can see Python is present on 0th location, index value, and then this part and this part is executed. So very simple approach, very easy. Try block, here we try the code where you know exception can be raised, and accept what kind of exception it is going to raise. You have to write that, and the code which will be executed when there is any exception. In this case I'm just printing the message. Let's understand finally. I'll just print, this is finally block. So finally will always execute this block. The control will always come here if there is any exception or if there is no exception. Let's run it. You can see finally block is executed. Now let's raise the exception. So this is not present, it will raise an exception, and still you can see the finally block is executed. So this is very useful in a situation, let's say you open some resource and you want to close it or perform something, some operation in both the scenario, if exception is there or if it is not there. So finally is the best place to write that code. It will always execute. Let's take one more example. I'll ask the user to enter two numbers and divide the two numbers. So let's call it first number, and because I'm expecting integer, so int enter first number, then enter second number, result equals to first num divided by second num, and I'll print result. Now we know that when we divide, we cannot divide by 0. So if you try to divide by 0, it will raise an exception. So it's not possible. First let's try this. 12 to no problem. But once you give 12 and 0, raise exception. So it raises, here you can read, it raises zero division error. So from here you can understand what kind of exception this program is raising. So let's use here try, because this part is creating a problem. So I'll wrap this inside try block and accept zero division error. Let's print a message cannot divide by 0. And you can see cannot divide by 0. Now here this will raise an exception object, and this is a class zero division error. Here let's use here as the name of the object, let's say obj, and we will print what this object contains. So let's print it obj. Now this message I'll comment, run it again. You can see here division by 0. So we can get it, and here you can see store in a variable and print it. But if there is no exception, it will work without, this control will not come here. So these are very simple examples of exception handling. We'll explore more about this in coming lecture.